I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I'm lost.
Welcome back to PSGL. We are in round 10, 2 races away from the championship, and I am joined once again by Dan Gilligan. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm very, very well, thank you, Reese. How are you doing today?
I'm absolutely spiffing now we got your name in the standings. For those who have missed last week, due to technical difficulties, Dan ended up in the race, and I may have mildly protested for his name to be added to the standings, and it now has. So,
Very true. My one and only appearance in any PSGL race is a DNF, so that's horribly embarrassing, and I'll have to join A division as a driver at some point to correct that mistake. But in terms of my own various proclivities and problems, that's nothing, of course, compared to what we're all here for today. That is, of course, the second last round of the season here in PCF 5, and, well, we've only got 2 drivers left in it. We've got a 44 gap from third place to first, and so therefore not enough points remaining for them to be able to win this championship. So it is going to be a McLaren driver that will win, but which one? This has echoes of the late 80s and early 90s, doesn't it?
Very massive echoes, but just on a very modern track. The track being the Circuit of the Americas, a beautiful track in my opinion, with 20 corners, being 3.41 miles, and definitely a track where you see a lot of side-by-side action. So if anything, this will be a very, very interesting race indeed when we get there. But first, it is qualifying.
It is qualifying indeed. Now, with the likes of, with Vincent Nyquist and Fionn McKee being the two championship protagonists, with Fionn in the lead, has been in the lead, in fact, all season long, with the exception of the end of the first round. So from round 2 till now, they've been at the head of the championship. They've had some good results along the way, and I think it's more than fair to say that they are better in race trim than they are in qualifying trim. However, there have been the occasional duff results here and there. Things like round 2 at Miami, the last time that we visited America in PSGL, of course. That was not even a podium appearance for Fionn on a day when Vincent did not show up. And it was then, a much better performance in it was either Imola or Monza. I forget which way around it went. In fact, actually, it doesn't really matter either way, because in both Imola and Monza, Fionn finished in second. And then of those two races, in one of them, Vincent did show up, didn't manage to get onto the podium, and in the other, they didn't show up. So a big points haul for Fionn when it mattered there. But, as I say, America and possibly Japan as well, really the two blemishes on their championship run so far.
Yeah, and now we're back to a second America where, as you mentioned, the championship's only got 4 points in it. So I don't think necessarily it can be won. I think it can't be won, but I don't think you could win it. It definitely gonna go down to Britain. I know that bit for sure. I'm trying to work out the maths roughly in my head. Actually, no. Technically speaking, no, it could be won. If you think about the maths really, really carefully, 26 points. There's a 4-point difference. It's Fionn in the lead, isn't it? That's what we're talking. It's Fionn in the lead.
Yes. Yep.
If Fionn wins with fastest lap for 26 points, and Vincent does not score any, or does not achieve P8, then P9 and fastest lap, then Fionn can win.
Well, that would be true if we were, of course, running to official F1's point scoring
the points
system.
are different. I completely forget about that. I keep completely.
Yeah.
Then even so, now you gotta make me redo maths. Hold up a second. You talk about something while I quickly get the points up and I redo maths.
Excellent, very good. So, in terms of that then, I mean, right now on screen we have Dimitri Minic coming round on their timed lap, and at the moment they're headed down the back straight, down towards, of course, turn number 12, one of the great big areas where you might end up seeing some overtaking, but as you rightly say there, they have invalidated that lap. So, as we now just enable the telemetry on my screen, and on the screen we now also move over to Ali Finn, who had a decent run last time. In what I believe was their first appearance so far this season. I managed to score some points, but of course we're running nice and high in some parts of that race as well. So hopefully, as far as they're concerned, they can get themselves up the order, get themselves into a more competitive position, maybe into the podium, and then maybe stake their claim on a full-time seat next season, of course, which is likely not too far away once this one is concluded. So open up DRS, and for the first time on the board, so therefore they are the top, so it's a 1:33.1 is our initial pace, but then Jeremy Glinner, the real star of the last few races, suddenly comes out to show us how it's done, and it's a 1:32.8 for the world. Jerry Van Bussel.
Just to make a quick point, I don't know if you... Oh no, your internet went.
Oh dear.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you left a massive gap. I thought you'd finish, but I also realised it was kind of midway through a sentence. As Fionn McKee is about to go across the line, our championship leader, what can he put on the board? It's got to be decent. It is looking decent. It's a 1:32.7.6. My point is right, because it's 16 points for first, and it's still 2 points for ninth. So, essentially, if Fionn wins... And then this man down in currently 14th doing his time lap, Vincent Nyquist, ends up in P9. Even with a fastest lap, Fionn can take this championship.
So there we are then. It's all very, very close indeed, and could still be decided today, of course. But just to sort of bring it back to the reason why these guys are so far ahead of the rest of the field, let's just take a look at the number of points finishes they have scored. So over the course of the season, every time they have entered a race, they have scored points. And of those occasions, for both drivers, only... well, actually, no, that's slightly incorrect. So for Vincent Nyquist, of those occasions where they have entered a race, they've gone on to score points in every single one. But then on 2 occasions, it's been off the podium. And for Fionn, as now Vincent comes up to the line, sets a new fastest time there, just 3 thousandths of a second quicker than their teammates as well. So we've got a competitive lineup between these two clearly this weekend. And, excuse me. Yes, so the 2 non-podium finishes for Vincent and 3 for Fionn. So I'd say on an issue of balance here, if the drivers are going to finish today, they're most likely going to finish on the podium based on historical precedent, I suppose you could say. And so therefore, hopefully, we will have a championship that, unlike F1, goes down to the final race, as of course Max Verstappen is looking fairly comfortable to be within a chance of winning the championship this weekend, if not next.
Absolutely, it's definitely going to go down to the wire, and I think a lot of people would love to see a championship go down to the wire and continue to the end, as we are going to see Danny go across the line now. He's currently at P16. What can he do for the Alpine? He puts up to P8, and looking at the gap, as mentioned, but you're probably going to hear these two names, both McLarens up at the top with a clear gap between Jeremy Glinner, who is in P3, nearly a 10th out. So that says a lot between these drivers, but then Jeremy and Speed running for the Red Bulls, running close to each other, and then a massive gap to Jerry Van Bussel and the rest of the pack thus far. But critically, Invalidations is creeping up on this track.
They are, and it's crucial areas of the circuit, really. You've got the likes of the end of the first sector, start of the second, that sort of area of the track, specifically as you go on the run down to it. Well, actually, it's a little bit of the way into the second sector, actually, but it's down to turn 10. So as they come over the rise and then start to go down the hill, turn 9 as well can be an issue there. Turn 9 is actually what I'm thinking of. What am I talking about? So turn 9 then, and so just after you've come out of the S's, there's a great big long right-hander, then it cuts back up towards the hill, and then drivers, much like going over the top of Eau Rouge and Radion, can end up finding themselves just cutting the track limits just a little bitty too much, and so on. So that's something which is always just got to be considered. Whereabouts is your car positioned, and therefore are you likely, yes or no, to end up coming a cropper of those track limits. And this circuit, whilst it does give us great opportunities for racing, the third sector in particular is fantastic for side-by-side action with the nature of its slow corners and so on. It does mean then that sometimes drivers will be just overstepping those limits perhaps a little bit more than other circuits, because they'll be down the order and getting picked up by others.
Absolutely, and again, your internet's not having a good day, isn't it?
You say that, but this time I was looking at my my Discord ping the entire time, and it stayed green. So, is your internet okay? It's not usually something we have to ask, but yeah, I mean, usually it is mine that is the culprit, I will admit, but I'll also admit that I will defend my poor little internet whenever it doesn't appear to be doing anything wrong, which it doesn't seem to be right now.
I'll take that back. To be honest, I live in the countryside, so that says a lot about my internet. As Theo McKee is going to restart a lap, so he was on an extra lap for warming up his tyres. He's going to go for another lap. I think he's not in the championship anymore, but Jeremy has put on a brilliant performance. Entertainer still with his... It's been brilliant racing. Him and Jerry Van Bussel definitely tried to push with Fionn and Vincent, and then you got Dmitry Minik as well, been at the back of this bunch as well, putting on a show, especially at the start. Dmitry Minik, we actually said, was a contender for this championship, but he's been struggling with invalidations on this track. So what can Jeremy do? He's put a purple first. He's about to swish himself into the second sector. Is he going to be putting on a show today? 4/10 up on his lap time. Hold up. Have we only been scratching the surface at the moment, or am I dreaming the fact I just saw that number?
Well, I mean, if that would line up with what Jeremy has been doing the last few rounds, it's been a bit of a... It's almost as if they've been able to cast some horrible spell on Dmitry Minik here, and because, we look to the first part of the season, Dmitry had 4-point scores, 3 of which are podiums, 1 was a win, as Jeremy goes top there by well over half a second there. Look at that. 32-2. That's a brilliant time. But yes, as I say, I mean, so first 4 rounds of the season, Dmitry Milic, as you rightly pointed out earlier on, was looking to be a championship contender. And then as Fionn improves there, they go higher than their teammate, but not as high as Jeremy. So 132.5 for them. What's Vincent going to be able to do in just a few moments' time as they head down the back straight? But yes, as they head down this back straight, down towards turn number 12, since round 5, Dmitry has really been struggling. And then since round 6, Jeremy has suddenly stepped up to the plate. All 4 pole positions at the last 4 rounds have been claimed by Jeremy. And of those 4 races as well, 3 on the podium, 1 point score. 2 of those podiums were wins as well. So purple second sector for Vincent Nyquist there. So that indicates to me that that's a straight line speed setup on that car. Which may well give them a huge benefit in the race itself. You can be very quick through the corners, of course, but if you end up losing out on the straights and so on, then you can be very easily overtaken by cars, maybe slower around the course for a whole lap. Now up to the line goes Vincent Nyquist, and it's an improvement, but it's no better than Fionn McKee. Game on.
That is a massive game on, especially when there's a 4-point gap from the get-go, because you want to eliminate as many points as you can coming into the final race. Now, the scoring points are different, as we've mentioned, so critically, there is a smaller gap between the points. So the closer Vincent is, the less damage he does, but he'd much rather be ahead, especially off the get-go. Though that being said, the run up to turn 1 it's a medium distance. Like, it's not the longest. It's a medium distance, and would the second row... I feel the second row would actually favour him quite a bit, as just went out speed has put himself second.
Yeah, that was the sudden ooh that I let out there. As you say, Franek has been able to jump their Red Bull up onto there, so it's a Red Bull 1-2 at the moment. Something which I'm not sure we've actually been able to say at all season.
No.
So there we are. So it's Red Bull versus McLaren in terms of that Constructors battle. But that being said, again, much like 1988, the McLarens have got the Constructors Championship on lock. As far as that's concerned, that's already dealt with, I believe. I could be wrong with the maths there, but I'm fairly certain that'll be the case. And so that's what we're seeing now. Now, Dmitry Milic goes across the line to start a lap here. Into turn 1 we've gone, and out on the exit, and it looks like a decent exit on that car there. Good traction on exit. Now we go through the S's, of course. Inspired by Silverstone, and the Maggots and Beckett section there. They chuck the car in, it's left, right, and then through the big long right-hander, end of the first sector. It's a 25.2 for that first sector. They've not set a time so far, so we don't know how much of an improvement that is versus the rest of the field. Over the top of 9, and then through 10. No invalidations there, so that's good so far. Down into 11. Get the car slowed down, bit wide of the apex there before we then get onto the power and go down this back straight. Now again, this then is likely to be one of our action zones headed down towards turn number 12. Of course, the site of 2 different Lewis Hamilton on Sebastian Vettel overtakes for the win in recent times. 2012, of course, the first time Cota was used, and then during their championship battling in 2017, 2018, I forget which year it was, but of one of those 2 years, Lewis went and did a similar move on Vettel down into turn number 12 there. Through the third sector we're starting to go now then, and again, this is where everything slows down a bit versus the rest of the lap, and where you can then start to see drivers taking alternate lines to get some moves done on one another. This multiple right-hander here, 16, 17, 18, then we go through 19 and down towards 20, the final corner, and he's invalidated. Oh no, well, at least it happened there, so they can dive straight into the pits and get a new set of boots on. But Dmitry Milic struggling once again.
One more run these drivers had. We're coming into the final phase of qualifying, and in previous lights of have McLaren done it? Yeah. 116 points. I think they've done it. Like, that is locked down. The next best team is going to be Red Bull, so it's actually Jeremy and Frankie is supposed to be... Oh yeah, that is Frankie. Yep, he just uses a different name. So both drivers doing well for Red Bull, but it's not going to be enough to take the... where's I going at this point? Try and take the Constructors. My brain went there.
Don't worry, it's fine. I shall rescue you, and I shall talk. So we're currently looking at Alexander Johansson, and they... Oh, dear! Ooh. And in addition to invalidating their lap, they've now pretty much invalidated that set of tyres by doing a great big spin there. I'd wager they will now be done with qualifying and starting from the back of the grid here, unless they're able to get the battery recharge on. Oh, goodness gracious, going over the grass like that is not going to help you at all there, Alexander. And Alexander, then a driver who has impressed in some of the last few races, ended up having a bit of bad luck in varying points to then end up not really being in a position to challenge. And but still managed to bring some points finishes home in the end, so that was good for them. But now, as we watch instead the likes of Danny Cofield, and they now start a lap here, or have they just finished a lap? I think they've just finished one, haven't they? It's time's just flashed up in the top right for me when I went on board with them, so I think they've just finished a lap. Oh, that being said, though, they're on tyres that are currently 0 laps used, so they must not be. Must not have, rather. They must be on a lap.
They might
so there
be.
we are then, through the S's. And I'll tell you what, I'll hand over to you as we come to the end of the first sector.
Yeah, one of the trickiest sections, I believe, is this S section, because you mess up one corner, you mess up the rest, your line's screwed over, as that car needs to get, ooh, that Alpine nearly getting in the way. Into turn 11 we go. You've got a lot of drivers will try and cut that corner, but you can see Danny playing it safe and sorry. Up through we go. It's a over and then back down. It's like a mild hill, this back straight, and it's the heaviest braking zone on the track into turn 12. Easy to lock up. You can see the front left locking up and possibly some rear tyres. The McLaren, oh, he's got traffic. Danny is nearly running into everybody at the moment. The McLaren nearly getting in the way as he goes through the second sector. This is turn 15. Another difficult area, kind of almost like Bahrain, that corner. You brake in mid-turn very slightly, so you have to straight line the car before you take the turn. Through turn 19, keep the car within those white lines, and finally through turn 20, again, keep it between the white lines, straighten it up, power it down. It's good for P5. That's not bad, actually, P5.
Not bad at all, not bad at all. And we've got something of a Noah's Ark grid starting to form here. 2 Red Bulls, 2 McLarens, and 2 Alpines. So hopefully, Kinty can get a good time in. Oh dear. So Vincent Nyquist will not start any higher than 4th place here today. Now, we compare that to their teammate. They are currently, earlier on in the lap, they're going through the S's, and they've just invalidated as well. So Fionn and Vincent will not start any higher than where they are placed currently. And then for the likes of Jeremy Glennon, they are not going to be able to improve on their time at all. I've just switched to them, and they're 7/10 down on their previous best. Meanwhile, Franek might be a sudden pole position shout here. They are about 4/10 up in this first sector so far. According to this change in time here, it's come down again. It's now 300ths up, but still, 300ths, if they can get that in all 3 sectors, that will get them above their teammate Jeremy Glenner. So we could be looking at a sudden shock. Franek pole position here. They've never started on pole this season. And that's a lie. They did. They started on pole in Japan. And then, but they did DNF from that race, so they weren't able to show us what they were able to do. Jerry Van Bussel has now posted time to go 8th fastest. That's now been Vincent Nyquist now come across the line as well, invalidated of course, so they're not going to be able to improve. And so down into turn 12 we go then with this Red Bull, with Franek. Cross the timing beam we go in a few moments time.
0.066.
And it's 6 up, so that's another 3/10 that they need. 300ths rather. If they can get just a few more, then they will be in a good shout here. They need around about, what's that going to be, about 1.2 to 1.4 tenths, maybe, something in that region. My GCSE maths is failing me, I must apologise, but there we are. So through the final couple of corners we go then. Have they been able to do enough here? Franek comes round the final turn, up towards the line. Where will they put their Red Bull? It's still 2nd place. It's an improvement, but they lost time in the final sector there. Down to only 6,000ths improvement. Danny Cofield is not going to finish out their lap on circuit, and instead it will be their teammate, not their teammate, rather their rival Joris, who comes across the line, is not set a valid lap time, so they will start from the 2nd last position on the grid.
Yeah, the speed, Franek. That final turn screwed him over. You can see the car twitching out on the exit of turn 20, and it's so easy to do that. You put too much power down and the car just twitches out and then oversteps its line. So critically, that's why he lost so much time, and it was on that corner alone. But Jeremy Glenner once again finding himself pole position. Then it's Franek, then Fionn McKee keep it ahead of his championship contender Vincent Nyquist. So it was Red Bull 1-2, and then a McLaren 3-4. Unfortunately, we don't have Alpine 5th and 6th. They got promoted down to 7th, 8th, with Alphin in 5th. Memento, our winner from last week, in 6th. Danny Cofield in 7th. Alex Burry in 8th. Norby in 9th. Jerry Van Bussel in 10th. And I took too long and I didn't do the rest.
That's all right. We'll see them on the grid in a few moments' time, so we'll be able to go through them there. But yeah, so Jeremy Glinner maintains their run now of 5 consecutive pole positions. I think, off the top of my head, and without knowing absolutely every single division's, pole position record, but I think that's probably now the longest running streak of poles in PSGL this season. I might be talking absolute nonsense there, but I mean, given how competitive and how well PSGL tends to sort people and get a competitive spread in every single division, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the most consecutive poles from anybody this season.
I wouldn't be surprised either. 5 poles in a row, and as you're mentioning, a very, very competitive grid. It's not an easy task, but then again, he's not always capitalized on them. We've noticed that Jeremy will drop down the grid to then rise back up, as we're going to be heading underway again. Just as a reminder, no formation lap, so we're going straight into this when the game wants to load. Hello, we want to load? Maybe? Question? Is it? Are we having problems? I was getting prepped and ready for the start. I was actually getting excited here.
It seems a little bit like a problem may be developing. We've got this very long wait now. Now, given that this is... Oh, no, suddenly we're in. We've got 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out and away we go, and it looks like a good start from Jeremy, but an even better start from their teammate alongside. They've got medium tyres versus Jeremy's hards, and the 2 McLarens fighting hard behind. The best Red Bulls come into contact with one another into turn 1. So do the McLarens. The Alpines have been separated, and now down through the turn number 2. Speed Frantic takes the lead of the United States Grand Prix. Jeremy Glinner comes in behind. Vincent Nyquist has been able to overtake Fionn McKee down in through those first few corners, and now the rest of the field falls in behind. Ali Finn, Norby, Danny Cofield, Jerry Van Bussel, Memento, Mattia Di Campo, Dimitri Rinic, Alex Berry, Kinty, Daniel Rocker, Alexander Johansson, Joris, and Elliott at the back of the grid. Now then, back up towards the beginning here, we've got Vincent Nyquist very, very close to the back of the Red Bull in front of them, of Jeremy Glinner, who of course managed to take pole position, but as we suspect, Vincent may well have a very good straight line speed setup on this car. Let's see what they're able to do on this back straight on the run down towards turn number 12. Here we go then. No DRS, of course, in these first few laps, and then it'll be lap number 3 is when we start seeing that rear wing opening up on the cars, and as they get closer and closer, it's no cigar. Down to turn 12 they go then, and the top 4 remain as they are.
Yeah, brilliant stuff in the top 4. They are able to hold their positions is in a sense that they keep within their teams. Of course, Fionn losing out on Vincent, Frantic losing out on gaining again on Jeremy. So there has been position swapping, but the McLarens aren't able to attack instantly onto the Red Bulls. Bit further back, Norby in 5th has gained a few positions himself, so he's been working his way up the grid. Memento's fallen down the grid, so not looking good for him, but don't rule out Memento, because we've seen what he can do when he puts his mind to it, as I think that's a side-by-side from Ali Finn against Jerry Van Bussel. They're going to go down into turn 1, and it's looking good because behind him, Dimitri Rinic, who does not have a good qualifying, is not going to try and go for 2. He's going to go for the... he's going to go for 2 off the get-go into turn 1, and critically, that turn 1 corner is brilliant for overtakes like that, and Dimitri Rinic says, right, I'm coming back for the end of the season. I'm going to make a show of it.
Absolutely they are, yeah. What a brilliant move. I mean, they were a bit lucky in that the Aston Martin and Ali Finn went too deep into turn 1. I think without that, it would have been a much more difficult task to get even one overtake done, because going 3 wide, of course, it would have then meant they would have been very tightly pinched to the inside corner. But very, very good navigation there from them. And Norby up into P4 now. They've been able to get by Fionn McKee. That's not going to help them as far as their championship standings and potential results are concerned. Remember, P3 rewards 10 points here in PSGL, and then P4 rewards 8. So therefore, if you are able to stay just 1 position behind Vincent Nyquist at this stage and then finish 1 position behind them, then Fionn would go into the final round still in the lead of this championship. As it is, though, they would lose 4 points to their championship rival. That would then mean they would go into the final round tied on points. That would mean Vincent Nyquist would take back the lead of a championship he has not led since the first round, because he has 3 wins to Fionn's 1.
Theon, I think, has got a problem. He's dropping back. He's already 1.2 seconds behind. Also ahead, Jeremy Glinner, also 1.1 seconds behind the leader. So Theon, I think he's got a problem. I don't know, because you said they made contact from the get-go off the race start. So is that little bouncing between each other caused some wing damage we can't visually see? Because Danny Cofield here is really... He was pushing the rear end of Theon, but he's now losing out here. So it might have stagnated. Problem might have been adversed.
Potentially, yeah. And the thing, of course, around this circuit, like so many circuits on this year's game, because of the nature of the cars, is that once you fall outside of 1 second from the car in front, it's very difficult to get that back again once DRS is enabled, because then these DRS trains start to form, and then it's very, very difficult to get back onto the back of them again, because, of course, then everybody in front of you then starts to just get that extra speed down the back straight that you're not getting. So Theon here is now a second thereabouts off the back of Norby, and Norby's now starting to pull away because they've got the DRS and Theon does not. Now, Theon's got a little bit of a hard ask here when it comes to fighting Norby in this early stage, because they are on medium tyres. Frankly, I'm surprised that Norby isn't even closer to the back of Vincent, or even potentially past them by now. But there we are. And for Franek, they're doing a good job, but could be better at the front, because yes, they do have a second's lead over Jeremy Glinner at the moment, but Jeremy is on those hard tyres and Franek is on the mediums. Everybody else in the field on the hards.
Keep an eye on Dmitry Minik. He's closing down onto Danny Cofield, and he is out for blood. Yes, again, Dmitry on those hard tyres, but he is looking strong today. He's looking like he means business, unlike he was a couple of races ago. I'm actually genuinely scared of where Minik can end up, because it's all to play for here. I know it's early, but anything can happen, as Matty DeCampo is going to gain a position up to 9th place as he gets past Memento, who is falling down the grid. So not a great start for the Mercedes driver.
Absolutely not. No, they're just hanging on to the outside edges of the top 10 here, and in that 10th place, having lost out to Mattia Di Campo, we then got Jeremy Bussell, Jerry Van Bussell rather, not Jeremy Bussell. I've just invented someone there. And they're up in P8. They're just that little bit shy of Dmitry Minic in terms of that DRS gap. As we head now onto that back straight, so Dimitri's going to open up that rear wing, and Jerry, whilst they are now within a second, they are not at the point at which we had the detection zone. We now got some time penalties starting to be dished out for the drivers, including for Dmitry Minic. Remember, in qualifying, of course, overstepping track limits all the time was the reason why they didn't really get too many opportunities to put in a good time. So it struck them again in the race here. Theon is now 1.6 seconds back from Norby here, who is pressuring their teammate, but Fitz and Nyquist is themselves within a second of Jeremy Glinner in front, who is sticking thereabouts with their teammate, Speed Franek. So right now, Theon must not be having the greatest of times in terms of trying to stick onto their championship rival. And I think you may be right here with that suspicion of some damage. Might be that sort of damage that we can't see on the car, visually speaking, but can still be affecting them all the same. So we will keep posted on this one and see what happens. There is, of course, then to consider that effect of the DRS as well, of course. That DRS train for the cars in front means that they are going to be able to pull away, even if Theon does some great laps here. Because Theon, as you can see, is still staying just about 9.5 tenths ahead of Danny Cofield here. Now, through the corners, if they're able to gap Cofield and get over a second on them, then at that point we'll be able to say, okay, so Theon has probably still got some pace in the car. They're just now suffering from the top drivers being in a DRS train. But as we say all that, through the S's we've gone then, and yes, just now then, it goes over a second. And now, will that stay the case as they go across the timing line? Ooh, it's going to be very, very close there as to whether Danny Cofield gets that DRS or not. We'll find out in just a few moments' time.
Absolutely. It's almost like Theon is conserving quite a bit if there is no underlining damage, as Danny does get the DRS. Because that could be the other thing. He is conserving for this long game. He might be trying to go from a hard to soft strategy, hence why he knows he's lost out at the start. He knows he lost out to Norby. So play defensive but safe, wait till near the end, and then go on to the softs. That could be a mindset that we're seeing right now, so it might not be a problem, but we're just going to have to wait and see. The rest of the grid at the moment, I've been keeping an eye on lap times, keeping an eye to see what's happening. The only person really kind of getting close is going to be Matty DeCampo in P9, trying to go against Jerry Van Bussel. Once again, Jerry, another man who's been amongst the names to fight in this championship, in the mid-pack again, not really... He's been going for risky strategies, Jerry does, and they've not always paid off. At the moment, I think he's going for the consensus of normal strategy, to our knowledge. But he's down in P8 with a 2-second gap behind Dimitri Minik, which Dimitri, on those medium tyres, has definitely done his job's worth. So we'll keep an eye as Memento is finding pace as well as he's closing down back onto Matty DeCampo.
Now, it's an interesting point you bring up about conservation driving style, because it is something that we've noticed over the course of the season, that Fionn tends to be much more comfortable after the halfway points in a race, when the cars are starting to get lighter with not as much fuel on board. So could be that in this earlier part they are struggling a little bit more. In terms of that gap to Danny Cofield, that's come down massively in the braking zone for 11 there. They went a little bit deep versus the Alpine behind. The Alpine has just been able to get DRS again on the McLaren, but... throughout all of this, I won't say the exact number because we don't want to, give anybody an unfair advantage or anything like that. But there is significantly more ERS charge available for Fionn than anyone else in the top 5. So it could be that your theory of conservation is perhaps what is being done here, because 3 seconds is a rapidly widening gap, yes, and you don't want to be that far back from drivers in front of you, but with things like an effective overcut or undercut, potentially, that could be a way of Fionn getting back into this. If they're able to go that bit longer in the race and get onto softs late on, maybe if there's a late race safety car as well, gives them the track position and the free pit stop, then that could be another route for them to get back in as well. As it is then, the top few are using their DRS down those straights, as you'd expect, but they're also using their ERS down them as well. So that's another explanation as to why Fionn is losing quite so much time to the cars in front. That being said, I've just been on board with them briefly there, and big oversteer moment on the exit of turn number 1. So perhaps that car not quite agreeing with the hard tyres with the current setup.
Maybe. We can only assume. We're not the driver, we don't know the strategy, and while we're talking about the front runners, Jeremy Glenner has closed that gap back within a second, so he now has DRS onto the front runner. So Frankie, who had that comfort zone, okay, it was teetering on the edge, any mistake would mean that he would go back in there. He's lost that safety net, and now he's got the raging bull of his teammate right behind him. As I think, are they both, I just realized, I think they're both using 32 as well. This is just a real side note that I've just noticed. Are they both using, oh no, one's using 38. Sorry, that was a complete side note.
No, don't worry at all. I mean, it's interesting because it means then that the Red Bull drivers are some of the few drivers who actually put the effort in to assign themselves a number. Most other drivers in this league and in esports generally tend to just not bother changing it. It's still number 2, and away they go. Oh, big oversteer moment for Norby there through turn 19 rather, and then through 20 they've been able to gather it back up again. But again, yeah, lots of VRS usage in the top 4. And then for Fionn, not very much usage of it at all. That means then that whilst Danny Cofield and Dimitri Minik are relatively close behind, you can see there down the front straight that the rear lights on the Alfa Romeo and the Alpine are flashing. So that indicates less than 10% ERS available to those cars. Same
with the Ferrari of Norby. His lights on at the rear. He's under 10% right now, so he's been trying to stick with the rear of the McLaren. As oh my god, just up ahead, Jeremy Glenner has got past Frankie at the exit of turn 8 and 9. So early overtaking, and critically, Jeremy's like, no, I've got to get past this guy and pull away. So there's a strategy move right there. But this now allows Frankie to have the DRS back, and does he have the ERS to attack as well? As they come up to turn 12, is he close enough? No. He's going to hold back, but that's going to widen Vincent Nyquist. You can see he's quite close as well. Is he going to try and mount a move now, possibly thinking that Frankie has a problem? But you just have to be patient after turn 15. You have to be patient here. Wait for turn 1 if there is anything left.
Yeah, I reckon it might be that those medium tyres could already be starting to reach a crossover point here, because let's consider it like this. In the same lap, both of the two medium tyre runners in the whole field lost a position or lost some time to the cars that they were fighting. So in the case of Franek, they lost the lead, of course, which they may well have a chance to regain here up into turn 1. It's uphill, so they can go late on the brakes if they want, but no, not this time. But it looks like they're going to get a good exit versus their teammate here. So what can they do on the run down to the S's? Not very much, as it turns out. They're still following in behind, so it may well be that on that back straight is where the opportunity comes. But yes, while they have fallen behind, Vincent Nyquist has also pulled away from Norby, who has also then lost time to Fionn behind. That gap now under 3 seconds for the first time in a few laps. So it could be that these medium tyres are now starting to, maybe not entirely slower than the hards at this point, but certainly we're now at a stage where the crossover has come, I feel.
It might be, and if this is the crossover now, then this is a very, very early pit stop for medium runners. We're talking nearly 18 laps running on the hard, but that is doable. That is easily doable for the likes of the hard if you can serve it well. If your name's Fionn, then absolutely, as you can see, Vincent Nyquist, he was looking for the move, he was looking for the gap, but once again, Frankie just, he's not really defending, but just where his car lands has blocked Vincent from actually doing anything just yet. And critically, Fionn, who was 3 seconds, now brought it down to 2.5 seconds as we mention it. So now, we said about conservation, I think this was a conservation game from Fionn.
It could well be, because that McLaren is now starting to close. They're dragging the two cars behind them along with them. They're not quite fast enough to be able to break that DRS. Of course, two different DRS zones around here make it quite powerful indeed. And as Norby heads up into turn 1, then they have lost time versus the top 3 as well. So that DRS train effect still very much in operation. As we've now got a great big yellow flag in the third sector, but that's for Daniel Rocker retiring in the pits, I believe. Kinty is also out of this race as well, also in the pit lane it appears to be. So those two drivers deciding enough's enough, 10 laps in, and that's the end of their race run. Memento gets another time penalty there for track limits as well, as we head down towards turn number 11 once again with the top 3. And into that corner they go, then bit wide of the apex was Franek there that time. They'll have lost time to their teammate there as a result, and lost time to Vincent Nyquist behind. Look at this then. DRS available on the Red Bull, but will it be enough versus the McLaren behind with more ERS remaining? That red light is not flashing on the McLaren, but it is on the Red Bull. But no, into turn 12 we go then, and once more, Vincent is held off by Franek here. Now, at this point, you have to wonder how much longer here, because whilst, as I say, I think it's the crossover point now as far as the medium tyres pace is concerned. They will start to become slower, relatively speaking, versus the hards. But I think they're probably still good to be setting some good lap times, probably for another few laps. I mean, we're probably going to look for something in the region of, I wouldn't expect to see any pit stops from the medium tyre runners until maybe lap 13, 14, something like that. I reckon that those tyres could do around about a half race distance.
Possibly.
Just based on what the tyres usually are able to do around various circuits on this year's game.
Frankie's red light is showing up, so is Jeremy Glinner, and it seems like the McLaren does have a bit more advantage. You've already started the trend to not say the number, but if you got eyes, you can see it for a brief second. But Vincent does have the ERS advantage now. He definitely can mount a move, so much like as we saw from the last lap from last week in Saudi Arabia, the court is in Vincent's hands right now. Okay, it's not a track that you can do a double overtake like Momentum did, but he definitely has the power and control to pounce when he wants to. Is there a... he could definitely pounce at one.
I think we're going to see an overtake here.
Yeah, he's definitely going to pounce now. So
sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's in his corner. It's in his corner, so why not? Make the move now. The flashing light showing. Vincent goes to the move. No problem at all. And if he hasn't used too much, he can now attack Jeremy Glinner as well.
Absolutely there. Yep, Vincent Nyquist gets up into P2 in this race. Jeremy Glinner is now 1.1 seconds ahead of their closest rival. And, in fact, actually, that gap has suddenly opened up again. Mistake possibly from Vincent Nyquist there as they went through some of those slower speed corners as Franek suddenly caught up on them and they lost time versus Jeremy Glinner in front. So That's interesting to see play out there, and then we'll see whether or not... No, yeah, into the pits we go then. So I was completely wrong. I was 2 laps late in terms of my prediction. And so into the pits go both of those medium compound runners. So there we are then. The mediums clearly dropping off. I was going to say, actually, earlier on in this lap... Yeah, it certainly seemed to be that the medium tyre was suddenly dropping off on this lap in terms of the pace. You know, it had been following Jeremy Glinner very closely, had Franek, and then all of a sudden the Red Bull, the lead Red Bull, started to just pull away. So as it is then, they come out the pits then. Whereabouts does that shuffle them out? Shuffles them outside the top 10 because we've not had any safety cars, but everybody has still been pretty competitive. You can just look on the track map there to see the Snake making its way through the end of the first sector and into the start of the second. That going all the way from Jerry Van Bussel down to Alexander Johansson there. So the bottom 5 of the top 10 are all as one unit so far, but now with fresh hard tyres on. Even though they don't degrade massively around this track, their 11 laps wear is still going to be noticeable versus a fresh set. So expect to see Franek get onto the back of Joris and then onto the back of Alexander and the rest relatively quickly.
Yeah, also to point out, this now poses a question to the likes of Fionn, Vincent and Jeremy. When do they pit? That is the question they're asking themselves as Jerry Van Bussel gets a bit squirmish out of turn 12. When do you pit? Because technically this isn't the right time for mediums. In theory, yes, you possibly could last, but you would really be scrambling at the end and with no tyre life. It's a risk to pit now. I think they're going to wait it out. Yes, they'll lose track position initially, but they'll be on the faster, more competitive tyre, as Jerry Van Bussel is going to go for the opposite of what I said, and he's going to go now and risk his tyres for later on.
Interesting. Interesting indeed. So, if we've seen those mediums go for around about 11 laps or so, or we're on lap 13 now, I suppose, then that still wouldn't get them to the end necessarily. Unless, of course, they're banking on the fact that the car will be lighter and therefore the deg on those tyres should, in theory, be a bit less. But there we are then, a few cars going to the pits now trying to get those medium tyres on. Could it be then that actually our medium tyre runners from the start, the likes of Norby and Franek, have actually gone much longer than those mediums were supposed to go, and therefore will have that advantage over medium tyre runners at the end? That's an interesting one to think about. Could we be seeing red light spelling danger today, with Norby making their way back up the order here? Could happen later on as the McLaren and the Red Bull at the head of the field get very close to one another once more. I think that if that is the play, if that is ultimately what's going to happen, and these hard times are going to be coming in the next lap or two for a set of mediums to the end, then I think that it will be advantage to Franek and to Norby here, because they're going to be getting a good undercut all this time, all this while. And then, of course, you know, the medium tyre runners will then have that extra pace in the beginning. But then if the hard tyre runners can just keep them behind, or at least keep them close, then they should be able to get the moves redone and repassed towards the end of this race then. So, end of lap 13, and they come around the final turn, and they stay out. So it might be then that for those cars who pitted last lap,
Fionn's in.
Jerry and Alexander,
Fionn is in.
They were, and Fionn is in.
The guy who's probably got more ERS than the rest of the pack has come in, and he's going for the mediums now. So I think he's trying to bait out Vincent and Jeremy to come into the pits at this moment, so then he can have a fair fight with them. That's what I'm thinking is happening, as Dimitri Minik does set the fastest lap on a set of medium. So Dimitri Minik's gone medium. He's going to do a soft run at the end as he does get past Fionn McKee. So this is a different strategy as well. So there is a driver that's there to annoy, which will be Dimitri Minik, and then Fionn, who's pitted. Technically, he's behind Norby as well. He's behind Franek by some distance. I've just realised that he's behind Franek by some distance.
Yeah, it's quite significant. Yeah, big undercut for Norby and Franek so far.
Jeremy spun over his own accord. He did not do Vincent didn't do anything to challenge him, and Jeremy just spun like it was like he was on ice. Literally like he was on ice.
Dear oh dear, that might be the sign then that these hard tyres are starting to go off. That almost confirms that Jeremy will drop down behind both Franek and Norby, but also fairly likely they would drop down behind Fionn at this point. So Vincent Nyquist decides to go around for another time. Will Jeremy come in this time? Yes, they do. So Jeremy Glinner into the pits then. We watch that from Danny Coatfield's perspective as the Red Bull driver goes into the pits. And now then, as we watch them trundle down the pit lane, I'm almost certain it's going to be the medium tyre. And there they are, all the Red Bull mechanics ready and waiting. And there we go, onto the mediums, and away we go. So where's Jeremy going to come out? As I say, I suspect this is going to be behind their teammate, behind the Ferrari, and possibly even behind the sister McLaren they've just been fighting.
Yeah, it's going to be very close where Jeremy Glinner is going to come out. There he is. He's going to be behind Fion. Yeah, he's behind Fion. And critically, Dimitri is also ahead of this lot as well. So Fion is behind Norby. Jeremy, who was... Fion was way behind Jeremy, by the way. And that spin doesn't help. But critically, Fion now has a positional advantage against the Red Bull driver. So all we wait on now is when is Vincent Nyquist going to pit? Is he going to pit soon and commit to the hard to mediums, or is he going, you know what, let's push to softs and go on those, because that is the alternative strategy that he does. Okay, Dimitri is an alternative strategy, but the alternative, as we know, is hard to softs. And I think that is definitely doable, as once again, Dimitri is ploughing through the field. He is not stopping for overtakes. We know he's an aggressive driver, but that is something of his own. And no, Vincent Nyquist is coming into the pits now.
So there we are then. Vincent Nyquist comes into the pits. More than likely will retain their lead after this, but you never know. It could be a monster outlap in the making for the likes of Franek or possibly even Dimitri. They're pretty close as well now to the Red Bull rather. So out of the box comes Vincent. They've been overtaken on circuit by Mattia Di Campo. For some reason, I'm still looking at the McLaren pit box. There we go. It now goes over to the... and I've looked at the stream as well, and you were doing this, the game did the same thing to you. So now then, Franek has come out just behind Vincent Nyquist, and they've got tyres that are already warmed up. Vincent does not. So now then, it's potentially game on here for an overtake for the Red Bull down the back straight. Look at this, look how much they catch up through the S's section, and it's just going to be a case then of will Vincent's tyres warm up enough by the time they get to the braking zone of turn 11 here, or will they just be able to scamper away from the Red Bull with that medium rubber on?
He's
now down towards the turn they go. Look at the weaving there, trying to get some of the tyres' temperature. But as they go into the braking zone, then it's very close between them. Franek then will have DRS here. Vincent will not. Now then, open up on the Red Bull. The Red Bull's also got a little bit of ERS available to play with. So does the McLaren. Neither of them are really using it. Down towards turn number 12 they go. Is this going to work? Is it going to be a Red Bull round the outside of the McLaren? I think there may have been a touch there we didn't see because of netcode, but suddenly Franek went off to one side and off of the circuit, and then I think there may have been a netcode issue there that suddenly bounced him off of the circuit. Now he's got Dimitri Minich hovering like a mosquito behind him there.
Yeah, Dimitri's waiting to pounce. We've seen him been overtaking quite a bit. He's on those medium tyres, so he has to make early moves early on. But critically, Vincent able to hold his position, because at this point, the tyres are now started to warm up. They're in the optimal area, and Vincent can now, and as you can see, he's pulled himself an 8/10 gap, and while Franek is being pressured by Dimitri Minich. Dimitri Minich is closing down onto the Red Bull. Is he going to make a move? He is going to look down the inside, and Dimitri Minich, wow, what a lunge. But the Red Bull's got good traction on the exit of turn 1. Through turn 2 they go, but Dimitri Minich has the inside line, and he will hold that position through the S's. This is allowing Fion as well to come back into battle. The man who was about nearly 3 seconds behind the person ahead of him, critically 5 seconds behind the race leader, is coming back into play. He's here with a fight. He's here to fight for second. He will most likely get the second because Dimitri Minich needs to pit again. But that has brought everything all back together.
It certainly has, hasn't it? And look at this then. Fion is also right in with this battle as well. They're right up the back of Franek at the moment with those medium tyres versus the hards. And things very close indeed there as they make the run down towards turn 12. Not as close as behind Fion, of course, as look at that. Dimitri gets round the outside into turn number 12 there of the Red Bull. And that means they're up into second place in this race. They can now chase down their old rival, Vincent Nyquist.
Oh,
and these two
Jeremy
sparring partners.
Glinner.
What's happened there? Jeremy with the move.
That was brilliant, but he hasn't been able to hold the position. As Fionn, yeah, Fionn makes a brilliant move to fight back. He's defending his line through turns 16, 17, and 18, because that's all one corner. And critically, what an attempt from Jeremy. But Fionn says, no, my championships with the front runners, stop interrupting me. As he now tries to focus ahead to try and catch back up with Franek.
Absolutely, yeah. Anything other than second place, if Fionn wins, is going to be obviously a detriment to Fionn's chances of taking the championship here in this final round coming up in Silverstone, of course. And as we go through the S's section with the McLaren then down in 4th place, they are just that little bit too far back from Franek at the moment. They've now just gotten within the DRS of the Red Bull in front. That's going to help them in terms of defending from the car behind, because crucially now, Fionn has burned up all of that ERS that they had saved up. They had over 50%. And now you can see that flashing red light on the back of the McLaren indicates they have less than 10. So that's how they found themselves back up in this fight. And now then, as they speed down the back straight, they've got the DRS open. So, though, does Jeremy Glinner. Down towards turn number 12 we go then. Will the Red Bull have a sneak up the inside? They're certainly thinking about it. But no, they pull back in behind the McLaren. And it is as you were for now.
Yeah, it's getting a bit punchy, Jeremy Glinner's. It's come out of phase 2. We'll hear me talk about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. As once again, Jeremy looks for it. I think this is his favourite overtaking zone, turn 15. But no, Fionn was ready for that. He closed the door very quickly when he saw that Red Bull not taking the optimal line. But as I was mentioning, phase 2 always causes a bit of chaos. Phase 2 being the pit stop phase. So we're at the exit. People are starting to just get to grips with their tyres. So you try and pounce early, gain track position, and then we will see a bit of a calm. Now it's less so in tier 5 because they're not as... It's less discipline as the likes of tier 2 and tier 1, which I usually use this analogy for. But the same consensus of when people start to really ramp things up is still the same. So we'll start to see roughly lap 25 more attempts to close that gap and overtakes to start to happen. But I don't think we're going to move away just yet from phase 2 for a little while, as once again Jeremy is going to close up, and I think this is within striking distance once again onto that McLaren. As we go down the straight, it'll be turn 12 where he needs to make the move. He's got DRS, but so does Fionn. So all the drivers ahead of him have the DRS necessary, and he's just a little too far back.
Oh, and that's a big hit! That's a big hit. Jeremy Glinner hits the back of Fionn. Fionn locked up into the corner, and then that just meant that the Red Bull went straight into the back of him. What a move! That has changed the face of this championship battle massively. Fionn's now got all the work to do to get back onto the cars in front. They've got Danny Cofield behind them and Norby as well. Both hunger for greater positions, more points and so on. Meanwhile, their championship rival is 2.7 seconds clear at the front of the field. And now they've got 2 Red Bulls and an Alfa Romeo between them and their rival.
So what damage has that caused on the car? Because that looked like to be a pretty decent shunt. Just as I was closing off, I'm trying to look at that wing. It looks fine visually, but we know that's going to take damage and perform a small percentage on the Red Bull, as well as the rear wing, as Jeremy Glinner is... What has happened to Franek? Franek has spun. Yeah, he's gone. He's gone and spun.
Franek has spun. Yeah.
So Fionn's back into his position.
Alexander Johansson has retired in the pit lane as well.
What?
So, and we've got a safety car. Virtual safety car. No, it's not a virtual safety car. It's just yellows in all parts of the circuit, but not a safety car. We've got... crikey, look at this then. We've got yellows in sectors 1 and 3, 1 and 2 because of Franek's spins. Then we've got Johansson retiring in the pit lane, so it gives yellows in 1 and 3. What on earth is happening all of a sudden? I'm surprised no safety car or virtual safety car came out through that point. The car was stationary for a long, long time. And, yeah, Franek making 2 mistakes pretty quickly, one after the other. And that's then meant that they are down the order. Oh, dear.
Could that be why we've had a few problems then? Maybe a slight glitch.
Well, you say that, but I've not got the migrating host message. I can see it on the stream that we run here behind the scenes. That is your perspective. I can see that there. But on my screen, all I've seen is Alexander Johansson leaving the session and no migrating host messages.
Ooh, that doesn't bode too well. What problems are we going to have? Is there going to be a desync? Is there not? We pray and hope.
Oh dear! All of a sudden, I can see a McLaren being mounted by an Alpine, so we've probably got some desync problems. They're now phasing through one another as Fionn goes past Jeremy Glinner here. I don't know if this is happening on your screen, but it's happening on mine. And oh dear, right, well, we're watching two completely different races all of a sudden, as Fionn has moved up into third on my screen, has phased through Jeremy Glinner, and so too has Danny Cofield. I don't know what's happening anymore. I'm going to look at the Discord and see what's being said.
Well, Jeremy Glinner has lost a position to Danny Cofield, for sure, so I don't fully recognise what is happening. Fionn is not gaining, but it seems like Danny has got pace because he's already 1.6 seconds ahead of Jeremy Glinner, now 2 seconds. So unless, and I use this lightly, unless like somehow Danny Cofield has just ramped up his game to the point he's now a god, or the game is absolutely broken to the point we don't understand what's happening. As Jerry Van Bussel is going to get past Norby in the midst of our confusion.
Yeah, I've popped some messages into the F5 chat to try and find out what's going on. Pointed out that the commentators are watching two entirely different races. I mean, just to give you some idea, right now you're seeing on the stream that you've got Vincent Nyquist and Dimitri Minic, rather, then Danny Cofield, then Jeremy. I'm seeing Vincent Nyquist, Dimitri Minic, Danny Cofield, Fionn, then Jeremy. So this is something is very broken, which it being F1 22 isn't much of a bloody surprise, is it? But there we go.
I was being polite and giving credit where it's due to the EA system, but yeah.
No need to be polite. I mean, these developers have let's not go into that on this stream. But I mean, we all know that these games have been plagued with problems for years and years, and they refuse to be fixed. So there we are then. We're watching two different races. We'll find out later on what the result is, I'm sure. But right now, nobody in F5 is saying anything at all.
Fionn seems to have like no pace, according to the stream, according to what everyone can see. Fionn has no pace, like none, zero, nil point in terms of his race pace, because once again Jerry Van Bussel has also got past him in the second sectors. Momentum just got past Norby as well, so a lot more overtakes spewing and unfolding between the drivers. But I wouldn't be surprised with the pace of Norby if he tries to mount anything back, but he's a little too far back, as you can see. Momentum giving him the little wiggle to say, haha, I'm past you, as that ain't supposed to happen. That is definitely not supposed to happen.
Yeah, so I've been doing a little bit of looking into this. I was trying to figure out who our host was, and it was Alexander Johansson, who's now doing time trial in Singapore. So they have retired and left the session, which then means that whenever the host leaves the session in this game, that's when desyncs start to appear. So I don't know if it's codified in the rules of PSGL whether the host has to stay in the session even if they retire from the race. Certainly the case in another league that I commentate on, because this is a known issue. But if that is a rule, then Alexander has broken it. If it's not, then it needs to be added, because this is why we now have, as I say, two completely different races going on. And for the drivers as well, this is going to be very confusing, because now it could be that they have completely different results versus one another. You know, we're seeing two different races from two different perspectives. We've got at least 13 drivers still in this race, so it could be that in total there are 15 different perspectives going on. We really don't know. As look there, we've got Fionn being passed through by other cars, and they are not a slow driver. They're leading the championship for a reason, and there's no visual damage on that car on your stream. On my game, he's still up in 4th place.
I think I've got
the desync, sniffing the back end of the Alpine of Danny Cofield.
Yeah, I think I've got the desync, and you are running fine, which is...
I don't think I do. I've just seen. So to give you an idea, Fionn and Danny Cofield are within 1/10 of each other on my screen, and then in the braking zone just now, they were on top of each other, literally on top of one another. And down the back straight, they weren't using DRS either, so, or at least Fionn wasn't, the car behind. So yeah, I think neither of us is seeing the right thing right now.
I
and
think
this is now
the
really
most sensible thing is, and I do apologise to everybody, but honestly, I think the sensible thing is we don't actually know what is the real stream, what is really happening. I feel it's best that we end this here and we basically tell you the results next week. I feel that is the best way forward because we're going to only speculate and not give you true racing.
That's a fair point. I think that's absolutely right and proper. I think that at this stage we are simply speculative and we don't know what is happening. There's no way of knowing, as you just have to pick up your camera. But yeah, so that's an unfortunate way for what was really quite an exciting race up until that point to come to an end. And unfortunately, because of the whether or not Alexander Johansson has known that this is a way in which desyncs happen on this game, the host leaving the session, I don't know. If they do know, then shame on them, I guess. But as you know, as with all things, we've got to assume innocent until proven guilty, haven't we? So there we are. We will leave it there, really. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks again to Reese for running the technical side of things as well, whilst I've been doing the talky. And we will see you next week. Keep an eye on PSGL's socials, and that will give you some updates as far as what has happened with F5. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Good night.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega and Grid Rival, proudly supporting PSGL.